Some things just go together. Wine and cheese, flowers in springtime, and yes, books and bottles. We pair your favorite author with your favorite drink. Your host of Books and Bottles, Benita Johnson.
Hi, welcome to Books and Bottles. I'm your host, Benita Johnson, owner of the Vine Wine Club. Thank you so much for tuning in to our show that introduces you to your favorite author, and we pair his or her work with your favorite beverage. Thank you. If this is your first time being with us, we appreciate you for tuning in. And if you are a veteran, thanks for coming back. We ask that you share because we want everybody to see this, because we're going to talk about a wonderful topic. We're talking about men. I broke out the brown liquor for this. So today I have author Xavia Fox with us, and we're going to talk about her book, The Men in My Life and What I've Learned. Ready? Welcome, Xavia.
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
Everybody? I'm great. How about yourself?
Good. So, when we talk about men.
Oh, yeah. Well, because I talk about them all the time. I do all the relationship discussions, so everybody knows.
All right. Well, I'm ready. I got the brown liquor out. So thank you so much for being on Books and Bottles. And let's just jump right into this conversation.
All right.
What made you want to write this book and tell us about all of these men, some good, some not so great, but all have taught life lessons?
So what made me want to write the book? Originally, I wanted to write a book on the art of flirting, and I still might do that book one day.
Okay.
But writing a book, there's a whole process to it. And so because this is my first book.
Okay. Congratulations.
So, thank you. So as I was studying the process of how to write a book, I was like, you know what? I probably should do the second book on the list because it'll be a lot easier for me because it's kind of autobiographical. So that's a lot easier than the art of flirting. So that's how I came to write this particular book at this particular time, The Men in My Life and What I've Learned. So it's an autobiographical journey through my life and the men that played a major role in it. And it starts with my dad. Okay. So here's the funny part. A lot of people think because it's The Men in My Life and What I Learned, a lot of people think it's a sex book.
Oh.
It's not.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. It's not. It's all life lessons.
It does have some steamy little parts in there.
Sure, and of course, because you learn from the relationships as well.
So it starts with my dad, who told me when I was a young girl that he needed to. So my dad was kind of a player. I don't know if you got that from the book or not, but he told me that the daughter pays for the sins of the father. So he was going to have to teach me some stuff. Otherwise, I was going to be in trouble. Yeah. And so it goes through all of the little things that he told me, his little sayings and stuff, even just life stuff, going after what you want to do, never live your life with regrets, things like that. Yeah. My dad was old school, though. So one of the things that is really different now than what my dad told me back then, because, relationships have evolved.
Sure.
And no longer are, the submission and the provider and all that kind of stuff. That's not a primary focus anymore. And I grew up with that. That was what I saw in my household. That was, my grandparents, my aunts and uncles.
Sure.
All very traditional.
Things definitely have changed.
Things have definitely changed. So a lot of the things that my dad taught me didn't really pertain anymore as far as how dating and relationships were going. So then we go to my very first boyfriend, and what I learned from that is you really need compatibility. He and I, we were young when we got together. He was 2 years older than me. I was like 15 and a half when we started dating. Okay. And so it was my first boyfriend. I sang in a band for like 4 years. Okay. He was the drummer, so we just kind of connected on that. However, outside of that, we really didn't have anything else in common.
Okay.
And so I wound up leaving him. He's also in there because he's my oldest daughter's father as well.
Okay.
So that whole thing happened.
Yeah, he had to talk about him.
Yeah. And it goes through, I only had one other boyfriend after that. And then I met my husband, and I'm a widow. So
Okay.
I shared that whole story, and the different things that he told me and taught me. Even though he was younger than me, he really was kind of wise beyond his years. Maybe it was the years that he spent in the Marine Corps.
Okay, that
Yeah.
does help. My ex-husband is a Marine.
And once a Marine,
Yeah.
always a Marine.
Mm-hmm.
So there was some very interesting experiences there. And I kind of learned, to be open and adaptable, because
Okay.
we were both younger, and I met him when I was 25. I was 24 going on 25, and we got married when I was 26, and we had my daughter when I was 27, my youngest daughter.
Okay.
So there was a lot of, at that age, you're going through changes because you're getting settled and things like that. So I learned a lot of adaptability with him, and, just dealing with some other stuff that came up that's in the book. I'm not going to give away the whole book, right?
Oh, we're not going to give away the whole book. We're just going
Right.
to talk about a little bit and get people to buy
Right.
this book.
Right.
So it's
so,
interesting that you talk about like during that age, that 27, 26, 27, because we do go like, I always feel like that's kind of like the first adult change, where we're kind of coming in to this adulthood. And, like you, I too was raising a child, at that age. And then, 10 years later, like 38 or so, I went through my second, kind of change and kind of,
Mhm.
Okay, now the kids are here, I'm
Mhm.
married, what else? It's got to be more. And I always say we're lucky if we're in these relationships and we still grow together during that part. Because sometimes, you get to that part and you're like, you know what, I don't even want to do, the things like this anymore. And sometimes your spouse is kind of looking at you like, what? Who are you? This is who I married. So.
And that's one of the things that I often wonder, because like I said, I'm a widow. Mm-hmm. And we were married for 5 years and together for 7. Okay. And I often wonder, would we still be together now? Yeah. How would we have changed? Would we have grown together, or would we have grown apart? So I didn't get a chance to do, that whole part. Okay. After that, I think you mentioned.
I do want to talk about right after I think your husband passed, there was the mentor.
Yes.
Dwight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Dwight was a little bit more seasoned. He was a few years older, quite a few years older.
Yeah, he was an older guy, and he was very established in corporate America. He had that great job and stuff. And I met him because I was at the time I was in corporate America as well, and I was in hospitality management. Specifically, I was a manager at the Hyatt. So the Hyatt does corporate events. And so as the manager during the event, my job was to socialize pretty much. I'm pretty good at that. Mm-hmm. They paid me to do it. That was really great. I couldn't believe that, So here's the funny thing. After my husband was killed, I said, what am I, because I was a housewife. Okay. And so I said, what am I going to do now? I got the 2 kids and stuff. And my mother-in-law, she was just like,
you got young.
And I was young. Yeah, exactly. Young. And so I'm like, what am I going to do now? I was like, Lord, just give me a job that I can do what I like to do and get paid for it. So he gave me a job talking to people. That was great. That was great. That was a great thing. And so I met Dwight during his company was having an event at the Hyatt, and I was just walking around, and he walked up to me, and he said, so you're running things here, huh? And I looked at him and I was like, yeah. Mm-hmm. He said, wow. And he was talking about the Hyatt in Milwaukee having come so far, because I guess, he travels a lot. So if you go across the United States, you may not see a whole lot of Black women running that whole division, because that's the face for their corporate stuff, And so we just started talking about that. And then we went to lunch one day because they had sent him to Milwaukee. He was from somewhere else. So he didn't know anybody in Milwaukee, and it was never anything, because he was married and had a kid. It was never anything funny. He helped me start my first business. He taught me about contracts and negotiating. And he told me different stuff. Like I used to always say that, because he always asked me, why did I have so much time to spend with him? Okay. He thought I should be dating. He said, you got your stuff together. You're attractive.
Yeah, your focus was on something different.
Why aren't you dating? And I said, well, I haven't met what I want. And so at the tender age of, I think I met Dwight when I was about 33, he
Okay.
told me, he said, you're not old enough to know what you want yet. He said, you've experienced some things in life, but you haven't experienced enough in life yet to know what you want.
Mm-hmm.
Just like I would always say, I know what I don't want. And he would tell me the same thing. He said, you too young. He said, you don't know those things yet. You haven't experienced enough yet. Just live life and, learn from it. And so
Right.
that's actually what I started doing. Dwight was, he's definitely a staple in my life. I'll never forget him. He told me
So
a
let
lot.
me ask you a question though, because I mean, I know in that relationship was strictly y'all were friends. It was platonic. How did people receive that? Because a lot of times folks don't believe that men and women can be close and in that close proximity and nothing ever materializes. So did you like get like from friends or family, like, nah, you must be, going with this man or whatever?
Well, see, that's the thing. Me and Dwight, we would meet at lunch. Sometimes we would meet for dinner, go for pizza or something like that. But we were never like, he never came around my family. I think my kids met him once because I think I invited him to a barbecue I was doing out at the lakefront in Milwaukee.
Okay. So nobody really knew him in your
Right. I
circle.
didn't have him around like that. They only knew he was a name. I
Okay.
was going, and my kids used to call him Mr. Macaroni because
Why?
his last name, it starts with Mick. And so they called him Macaroni.
Okay. Okay.
So, but I didn't have him around like that. It wasn't like, he was at my house and all that kind of stuff. We didn't do that.
Okay.
We met out in public. Sometime I would, because they had him at one of those, I guess, corporate housing things.
Yeah. So you're there for
So I would run in there,
extended time.
while he was finishing up whatever he was doing, and then we would always go out. So it never, and we would go to different places.
Right.
Go to different places. So it wasn't like people were seeing us together all the time.
I understand. Okay.
And I worked and he worked, so
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So after the mentor, there were a couple more people, but one person, that story just struck me. And you talked about your first heartbreak.
Whew, got me sweating.
Look, sips brown liquor.
Yes, I need to sip a little wine on that one myself.
So, Mr. Darrell, and you know what? So pre-show, I'll just give our viewers a background. Pre-show, we were just talking about heartbreaks, and you said you didn't have your first until you were, a little bit older. You were in your 40s, and so most of us, we had them as teens or at least in our 20s. So kudos to you that you survived 4 decades without having your heart broken.
Yeah, I did. And I attribute that to my dad. And like I mentioned, to my boy cousins, because I watched women, respond to my cousins. And then my dad told me different stuff. And you have to get the book to find out what it was. But, he told me different things. So I don't always know if that was the greatest thing, like I was telling you, because when you don't have your first heartbreak until 40, you really don't know how to deal with it. And you're so much older, you don't want to deal with that kind of stuff. In your 20s, I think that you're younger and you bounce back quicker and you develop skills to handle it better. Because that first heartbreak, I was just, that was just like horrible. That was like the worst thing ever in life.
I would imagine. And, and I wonder, if it's different, in handling it at an older age. So I remember one time my heart was broken over this guy, and I'm so mad because he won't even worth it.
Now, see, that's how I feel about my first heartbreak now.
Don't that make you mad? It's like he won't even worth it. But I was an adult, and he was the first person I dated, like after my divorce. And girl, he broke up with me on New Year's Eve, right? And so New Year's Day, I had to speak somewhere. And I remember sitting in the car. I was like, God, just let me get through this. I can cry later, but I just got to get through this. And I did. And I remember telling my friend, I have an older friend too. And we're very close. And I was like, gee, I can't breathe. And so he teased me 2 weeks later after I was over it, because I did move past. And, he was like, can you breathe now? But it's just amazing. How even in our 40s, we still kind of revert back to some of, well, for me, to probably the same way I behaved when my first, my heart was broken sometime in high school.
I had no skills to deal with it, and you said 2 weeks. It took me 9 months.
Oh, I got, I can't even say what the men in my life told me, but we've heard the cliche, the best way to get over. So I was like, so I moved. I was done. And when I thought about this person and how we met, and who he was during that period, that dating period, for me, it was vulnerability. I had just left. I've been married for a number, almost 18 years. I just left.
That must have been a heartbreak in itself.
Yeah, but you know what? It was, but I always say marriages end before the person actually walk out. Yes. So it's like by the time, I left, it had been over.
And that's how I did with all of my previous relationships. The other people in the book,
yeah,
I was always the one that ended the relationship. And by the time I actually walked away, I had already gone through all of my issues. So it was easier for me to just walk away, except for that one. Because when I actually moved to Chicago because
for him, right?
We were going really well. I did not know that the other chick even existed.
Yeah, because y'all where were you? Were you in Milwaukee?
I was in Milwaukee.
Okay. And so it was a distant relationship, kind of, right? And so
yes. And so I didn't find out that I was the side chick until I moved to Chicago.
Yeah. Because you were expecting, I remember in the book, you were indicating that you expected to see him so much more frequently, and you just didn't. I'm right around the corner.
Yeah. And so then when he did, finally come over there, because he actually called me. I don't know if you remember this part in the book. He called me the night I moved in. He didn't know that I had moved there.
Yeah, he was shocked.
I didn't want him to think I was actually moving for him. I wanted everything to still flow naturally, right? Mm-hmm. So I wanted to make that move and just be here. And whenever he called, I would just say, hey. And he happened to call that night. And he's like, what are you doing? And I said, looking out my back door. He said, what do you see? I said, Chicago.
He's girl, like, you could have bought him for a penny.
Like, what?
Uh-huh. Yeah. And so what was his excuse why he couldn't drop everything and come over then?
He always had some reason, and he always kept putting it off. And I shared in the book, because we would talk every morning via the instant chat thing that they
back then.
Yeah, yeah. So we would talk every morning, and it was just weird that he hadn't been over yet. And so I asked him different questions, and he would log off.
So wait a minute. So when the questions got too hot,
he would just log off.
And you wouldn't even say, I gotta go. Hold on. No, the doorbell's ringing. Just click.
And girl, then the next day, he would be like, good morning, like nothing had ever happened the day before. I was like, dude.
Say good morning. Say, I'm still waiting on instant chat for you for my answer.
Yes. So that was pretty interesting. But my takeaway from that, because afterwards, after I went through all of that, and I have to give it to him, and I think I said this in the book, he helped me get through. He actually helped me get through that first heartbreak, because he would always check in on me, and he would always tell me it was nothing that I did. It was him, because apparently, he married her, and she wanted to be married, and there was situations that came up anyway. So he always said it was nothing that I did, and it was him. And as time went on, and then I knew his friends as well. And so when I talked to his friends, and they were telling me similar stories, one I was doing some real estate stuff with, and he was telling me, a similar story. And so it just, I kind of got over it, because I knew it wasn't me.
Right.
It was his, where he was in life at the time, and what he was trying to figure out on his own. And I happened to be there.
It's interesting that you had the self-awareness to know that it wasn't you, because a lot of times as women, we like, okay, what's wrong with me? Why didn't he choose me? A lot of times it has nothing to do with us.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That had nothing to do with me. And then to top it off, I was actually empty nesting at that time. my youngest had turned 18 and moved to Minnesota. And then I moved to Chicago and was going through this. And I'm like, oh my God, all of this stuff at the same time.
At the same time.
Yes.
So did he feel like, did you want to get married? Like, were you thinking about with this man that, he could be my husband?
Lord, thank you for not letting him be.
Girl, a lot of times he saved us from some things, right?
Oh my goodness.
It's like you look back. Do you ever look back on some people that you had in your life?
Yes.
What was I thinking?
Yes, I do. And like you said, now all the tears I shed and all of that craziness that I went through, I kind of feel like I want to take them all back.
Yeah, because you kind of like say he ain't worth all those tears.
It's years later, and we are friends, just friends. And I know him a lot better now. And no, that would never happen again. That would never, because I know him, I know who he is now.
Right.
So but that was quite an experience. So that was my first heartbreak. And honestly, I think I needed to go through that because I'm also a certified life coach. And I coach people on relationships. And, I have the relationship discussions and things like that. And so how do you really talk about or relate to all the aspects of love? Because heartbreak is part of that. It can be, So how do you relate to someone going through heartbreak if you've never been through it?
Thank you for that. I have spoken with a lot of folks who are life coaches or spiritual coaches, so whatever. And a lot of the things, like sometimes they feel like you can talk folks through whatever their situation with a broad paintbrush. And sometimes when you cannot relate, you're kind of, detached from that person's issues. And so nothing comes of it. And so I appreciate you saying that.
And that's the perfect word. So I'm going to share this little story. Of course, this is not in the book.
Okay.
Girlfriend, and we've been friends for like 23 years now. Okay. And she was going through a heartbreak back when we were in our 30s. I'd never been through a heartbreak yet. And she's such a pretty girl and she got everything going on, and I was just like, girl, why are you crying over him? Forget him. It's so many men out here. Forget about him. What is up with you? Why? Yeah, till that heartbreak came knocking on my door.
Yeah. So you understand, and even with that,
I apologize to her because she was really in love with that guy.
There's a grieving period. It's like you do go through a grieving.
It was way deeper than I imagined because I was used to just brushing them off and moving on. And when you have that emotional attachment and your heart is broken behind it, it's a totally different thing.
Yeah, and I think it hurts more when they break up with us because we weren't expecting it. It's like if we're doing it, we've been planning it, we've rehearsed it in our heads over and over again how this is going to go, and so we're ready, for the detachment.
And then you really have to read in the book how he told me he was getting.
We won't share that because I read that. Yeah, he was as the elders would say, he was something else.
He was something else.
He was something else. So what are you drinking? What you sipping on?
I am drinking some peach Moscato.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I like my sweet wines, and I'm drinking it in my favorite little glass.
Let's see it. Oh, that's pretty.
It's got the X on it. Xavia.
I like it. That's cute.
My girls made this for me for my birthday. We did a girls trip to Dallas, and so I said I was gonna be lit the whole weekend. So she made me my own personal glass.
Oh, I like it. I have a B glass, and I have one of my sons who is a wine drinker, and he's a bartender, and so my B glass is in his room more than it's down here. His name starts with an N, so go figure.
That's funny. That's funny. So I am planning on doing a sequel to the book.
All right.
The last chapter in the book is no longer my last relationship. I am going to talk about being single over 45 in the next book.
Okay.
And I've had a second heartbreak.
Okay. So the last chapter in this book is called Deal Breakers. So I have asked a question. So now that you've bulleted these deal breakers for you, and I'm just gonna read a few of them.
Okay.
Some of them, especially I'm gonna read the ones that apply to me. Okay.
Okay.
Young kids.
Yes.
Intellectually challenged.
Oh yes.
A homebody, lacks personality.
Yes.
Bad teeth, skin, and hygiene. Absolutely.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
A liar, selfish, bad temper. So now that you've outlined these deal breakers, have you found yourself like in the relationships that happen after this book, the relationships that we're going to hear about in the second book? Do you feel like you're more guarded, or you're doing a better job of, checking off the boxes when you meet these brothers?
So I've only had one relationship since the book.
Okay.
The book was released in 2018, and I literally put the last relationship in there. The last relationship ended in 2014.
Okay.
I started writing the book in 2013.
All right.
So he was around when I started writing the book, but he wasn't around when I finished the book. But he and I are friends as well. I'm friends with all my exes except the ones that stalked me. And I'm sure you might remember the chapter on stalkers.
Yeah, they would be the ones not to have relationships. Yeah, those would be the ones.
Yeah, so I'm friends with pretty much everybody else except them. But
so I know we only got a couple minutes, but I did in the beginning you did talk a little bit about the process. So everybody's process is different, and we do have folks who are aspiring writers who watch our show. So tell us your process.
So when I researched how to write a book, you have to figure out what it is you want to write about. And then it's an outline. It's really based on your outline. And in your outline, once, so mine, that's why it made it easy for me to do this book, because, the chapters, they just go right along with my life.
Right.
But if you were writing a fiction book or whatever, however you want to outline it. So you come up with your outline. And then once you have your outline, you'll start kind of filling in stuff. And before you actually
chapters.
Book. And so then, the editing process. So I have, I like intellectually astute people. Uh-huh. So I have quite a few friends who pride themselves on their grammatic and spelling abilities. Okay. So I had a few of my friends just read the book. Actually, 3 of them. I had 3 of my friends read the book. And so they all came back with their own stuff. Well, this sentence should be restructured, or you spelled this wrong, or you should use this word instead of that word, things like that. Okay. And, and from there, we just went to print and had the book cover designed.
Yeah, I love it. I love your book.
I have men that buy this book
because they're thinking it's
they like the cover.
Uh-huh. Verbs.
Somebody told me when I was talking about doing the book, they said, well, make your book cover something that makes them want to pick it up.
Yeah.
Because if they pick it up, you got a 50% chance of them buying it. If they don't pick it up, if it doesn't stand out or jump off the shelf at them, then they're never going to buy it. So
I agree with that, because I have picked up a lot of books because of the cover. And most of the time when I touch it, I do follow through. I pick it up and walk straight to the cash register. So yes,
that's how this cover came about. And this was actually taken in a classroom. That's not Photoshop.
I like it. It's really cute. Okay. So, all right. So what's next? This sequel or The Art of Flirting?
So here's the thing. Got a couple books floating around in my head. I might do my cookbook next. Healthier eating choices, because I'm in health and fitness.
All right.
My youngest daughter said that I was put on this earth to find healthy food that tastes good, because that's what I've done. And about doing a cookbook next, actually.
All right. Well, I got to get you to Virginia in the spring, because I'm doing a writer's retreat. So I'll make sure you get the information, and hopefully you can come and hang out. So how do we get your book, The Men in My Life and What I've Learned?
My book is available on Amazon in Kindle and paperback. So you can go to Amazon, The Men in My Life and What I've Learned. You can also get an autographed copy through my website, which is xaviafox.com, as you see right there on the screen. So you can get the autographed copy.
I was going to say, because my book is not signed, so we got to fix it.
I sent yours right to you because, we were doing the show.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I have to get another one. I'll go on the site. I'll order it.
Okay.
I'll do it. So again, thank you so much for being with us. Good luck on this book. And I hope you sell plenty more copies. I can't wait to read the sequel and The Art of Flirting. I think that's going to be a little bit autobiographical too. I'm just saying.
Oh yeah. I like to flirt a little bit.
Ain't nothing wrong with it. So thank you for tuning in. If you're an author and you like to be a part of Books and Bottles, hit us up at info@grosprod.com. Thank you again for tuning in. Please share, and we will see you next week on Books and Bottles. Cheers.
Cheers.
Camped out at home for COVID? Join us, Indie TV, where you will see the talk shows, movies, drama, action, and comedy. Be the first and see it first. Sign up now for free at Indie TV.